Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Lucidity, and today I want to do something a little different. I'm going to basically read my notes off of a notebook. So I think that might be easier for me, and I'm also going to try to just do it in one shot without editing. And I think that I'll feel more comfortable making more videos, but let's see how it goes. Today's topic that I wanted to discuss is why I feel like I could live in Japan now in my mid-30s and why I didn't feel like I could live in Japan long term when I lived there in 2010 when I was in my early 20s. So it was a very different experience living in Japan this time versus when I lived in Japan last time. And I wanted to go over some of the reasons why I think that was the case. And as a fair warning, there might be some interruptions from this guy. This is my cat, Quentin. He looks so angry right now. And he was trapped in the bathroom. I'm so sorry. Okay, so he's here, and I don't feel like kicking him out right now because I feel bad. He was already kicked out, and he's already messed up the bed. So that's Quentin. Okay, so the first reason why I think I had a better time in Japan this time around and why it was a different experience is because Japan is different when you can speak Japanese. And my Japanese is not perfect. It was a lot better than it was when I was there in 2010. And in 2010, the school I went to only had the early, beginner levels of Japanese and an intermediate Japanese class, but the intermediate Japanese class still wasn't at the level of the intermediate Japanese class that I've done at my current university. So I think I was very, very low level of Japanese. And I remember when I was studying abroad, I couldn't speak anything until 4 or 5 months in, before I was about to leave. And then I came back after I graduated, after only having done some tutoring and a couple of other things, but not formally having taken advanced courses. And at that point, I was better and I was able to speak, but I still wasn't at a very strong level to engage in conversations with people. I could go to the store and I could talk to the staff and I can do all of those things, but I didn't feel super comfortable speaking. This time around, I have a homestay family. My school forbid us from speaking in any of our other languages. We had to speak Japanese. I think that helped a ton. My Japanese speaking ability is trash, but it was still much better, and I was still able to communicate, and I still had more confidence. And also, you can read everything, and you can get around so much easier. And I think it's you're able to connect more with people when you're able to have that confidence. So I guess it was also a confidence issue. It was partially a speaking issue, partially a confidence issue. But when you're able to just go about your day, talk to people, and engage, it's a much better experience. And that seems really obvious. But I think that was why my experience this time was different. So I think the second reason I'm going to say is location. And that's because this time I was living in the Yokohama Kamakura area. I love Kamakura. I loved living in Yokohama. And prior to that, in 2010, I was living in Kansai. I loved Kansai. I did not like the school that I was in. And I also then lived in Nagoya the following year after, and I didn't really love living in Nagoya. And not to I think for everyone's different. I think Nagoya was, I was still in a city, and it's a smaller city than Tokyo and Osaka, but it's also kind of isolated and a little bit inaka around the outside, these really small towns. And it's too far from Tokyo and too far from Osaka, unless you're taking a bus or taking the Shinkansen to go to either two of those, which can be kind of costly. And I think in 2010 it was a little costly for me. So you kind of feel like you're stuck in a bit of a bubble. That's how I kind of felt then. I think this time I loved living in Kamakura. I actually prefer more of the inaka, the countryside, to living in the city. I don't think I'd be happy living in Tokyo. And the same way that I don't think I'd be happy living in Osaka City, Nagoya City, Tokyo City. but more of the countryside, I think I enjoyed better, and that was not the case when I was there in 2010. My cat is playing with the blinds. I apologize. Okay, I forget what I said about the cat. He has to be let out into the living room, so he's been banished. Okay, so the next thing on my list here is important one. I was not teaching English this time around. I was a student. And I don't think I'd be happy in a Japanese office. Not everybody's like that. I personally don't think I'm happy in any office anywhere in the world. And that's partially because I have ADHD. And that's just, yeah, I'm going into academia. I think I'd probably enjoy working in academia more than working in an office, and I think more so than teaching English, because I don't think I enjoyed teaching English very much. And I think that felt very office-y as well, just sort of like the top-down structure of working for a company. I think I enjoy generally being in an academic environment a lot better, but I also didn't enjoy when I was a student at the university in Osaka that I went to, Osaka Prefecture. And but I think that had a lot to do with the program particularly, and I think that the program I was in this time was a lot smaller. But I also, I think generally speaking, a smaller environment is better for me personally to thrive in. And so the more countryside, the less people at school. I think because now I realize that I have a lot of sensitivities to being in environments with too many people, and it causes me all sorts of anxiety. I think I know that now in a way that I didn't know before. So that's a big thing. I don't think I could teach English again, and I don't think a lot of people want to be in Japan to teach English to begin with, generally speaking. It's just like the easiest way to get a job and have your year in Japan and enjoy that time. And that's cool if you're like coming out of college and getting your like first job, or you just want to like work for a year, be in Japan for a year. That's totally cool and a good experience, especially if you're not me, because I'm just really bad at those things. But I think if I wanted to stay in Japan long term, I would want to do it not as an English teacher and not as an office worker, but as probably in a professor role or at a university or doing something in an academic environment. Okay, I don't know what number I'm on, but the next thing I'll say is I've also changed a lot as a person, and I think that makes a big difference. And I'm not perfect, and I never was perfect. And even this time around, I had a really hard time in certain areas socially, but I think I've come to terms with that as being, part of like the experience of being neurodivergent, and still figuring out what that means over time. But since I have the language to understand my experience internally better, and I've kind of released a lot of the expectations that I've had for myself and in the past, I think that being in Japan this time, even though it wasn't easy per se, I think it's the nature of like being in a large program with like a bunch of students and having to navigate like social situations, which is just something I'm generally not good at. That's going to be hard no matter where I go all around the world, and not particular to Japan. So I can't say that like when I was in Japan last time that, because of like social things like that, that's why I struggled. That's just a me internally thing. But I do think that I understand myself better as an adult. And I was an adult then, but I'm like more of an adult in my mid-30s, having, been through a lot and gone to a lot of therapy, and we have new ways of understanding neurodivergence, and me, getting more coping mechanisms and things like that. And I also just have like a different idea of how I see myself and how I see my life, and what's important and what I want is different. And that all comes with age and maturity, or just change. I think I just have a different idea of what makes me happy as well. And I think that meshed better this time, where little things like just going to karaoke and just sitting in a cafe having a milk tea, or going to the shrines, or just like, I appreciate that a lot now, in a way that like I was way too focused the first time around on feeling like I fit in and finding my place. I was still like that this time, I'm not gonna lie, but this time I kind of recognized it and then stopped myself from doing that. Like, at some point I had to just realize, like, okay, that shouldn't be my priority. I need to just enjoy myself and all that other stuff. And like, once I found, a few good friends that I really felt like I connected with, I was able to be like, okay, I'm going to study, I'm going to do all these other things, I'm going to go to the Pokemon Center all the time and buy Pikachus. And yeah, I have like a more simple way that I feel like I enjoy life now. So that's a big major thing. I'm just older and more mature. Okay, so a very, very big one is that technology has changed. And the ways in which we can find connection has changed. And I think one of the biggest issues I had in 2010 and 2012 is I was very, very isolated. And that's because, again, I struggle with people and I struggle with social situations and all things like that. And I got taken out of my environment where I knew and understood my environment, and I had my friends and I had my way of doing things, was put into a new environment and struggled to thrive socially, couldn't really find my footing, and therefore like kind of floundered everywhere. Like my Japanese wasn't that good and I didn't really make friends, and I just kind of struggled to thrive, generally speaking. But that led to a lot of isolation and feeling of isolation, which today, okay, so I didn't have an iPhone until I was like 21 or something years old. And so I think when I was in Japan, the second time in 2012, when I was teaching English, I finally got an iPhone. But that was still a different time then than now. Like, now when I was in Japan, I had my iPhone and I had access to Discord and had my friends over Discord, and I would play video games with them on the weekend. And I had, I can call my mom and like FaceTime her. And I remember that I couldn't really talk to my family when I first was in Japan, especially in 2010. Like, I just had like the regular, like, look like those Nokia phones, and you're just like, text like that with, I don't even know what you call those anymore. Just like things that Gen Z wouldn't even be able to, not Gen Z, Gen Alpha wouldn't be able to imagine. I had no means of like really communicating with people to ground me in those moments when it's like a little bit lonelier or something like that. And so I have access to my support systems a lot better when I have access to the internet, and to when my phone is like connected to 4G all the time, and I could talk to people online and talk to people like not online, but like Line, the actual app Line, or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger and things like that. Like, I was able to be a lot more connected with people outside of my social circle, which kept me like grounded until I like found new friends, and which I'm also slightly better at doing, even though I still struggled with that. I also, again, like, I think I get, not that I didn't get depressed, but like less depressed, or less like, oh, why can't I do this, blah, blah, blah. Just more like, okay, this is a hard thing, I know that, and it's okay if I don't find people or whatever. And then, go play my video games on the weekend with my friends. And I think I was that's like what I realized. Like, I was pretty stable, pretty happy, and enjoying myself, and I got into a really good rhythm. And I think that that's going to just be me anywhere. So I think that technology has allowed that to be like a universal experience. Like, anywhere I go in the world, I'm going to have access to the internet and my friends and my support system. And since I'm neurodivergent and an introvert, like, the majority of my friends I speak to online anyway, rather than in person, even though I have some in-person friends when I was in Japan as well. I just think like it just added a level of like support that I didn't have in 2010, basically. Because I still had like, I made some really good friends, and we would always go to karaoke, and we would always go to kaiten sushi, and we made it a weekly thing, and I still like was pretty good. I just think it's like helpful to also like I think you also have that culture shock of missing all your friends and family back home when you're away, and that relieves that feeling when you have access to talk to people. And it used to be a thing of like, don't talk too much to all your friends back home, but I feel like you can do that nowadays in a way that's balanced because it's so integrated into our everyday life anyway, of like talking to people from all across the globe at any given moment, and it just kind of feels seamless. Where in like 2010 it was like I just felt like this boundary of like, here's Japan and there's home, and if I engage too much in home, then I'm not engaging in Japan. Whereas this time I could just do it all at once. It's a weird way of explaining it, but that's how I felt. Okay, so before I get to the last one, I'm gonna make a disclaimer that I'm mostly joking, but I have basically given up on all of my hopes and dreams for the future. No, I'm joking. So the thing is that I am in my mid-30s now, and I think when I was younger, I was very like, I need to find a husband, and like I want to have kids, and I want to be able to be in a job that I can stay stably and all of that stuff. And I don't know if I can do that in Japan because, like, quite frankly, I'm not like considered very attractive to people in Japan. Like, that's just something that like Japanese men has told me, and like from my experience, I'm just not like not that I haven't heard about women that look like me finding love in Japan, but I mean, there's also the stuff about communication issues and cultural things and stuff like that that kind of exacerbate that. But just generally speaking, like I remember being really disheartened in 2010 because like some people had made comments about my body or whatever. I didn't really care this time, generally speaking. I just like, I went to Uniqlo. I was happy the clothes fit me. I didn't really feel an expectation like that. It just wasn't something that bothered me. And I'm also like at this age where I guess I don't care that much about it as like I would like to fall in love and have children and whatever. But I'm also not going to force it to happen if I don't find somebody that I really like and feel that connection with. But also with that, if I was going to like get married and have children, I kind of think that Japan would just be better initially in terms of like social programs that are offered. Like, so there's things of just like, it was just more affordable to live in Japan. And right now, the way the world is, like, I don't know how the future will go and if things will get better. My cat is crying from outside the door. He wants to get back in. Hold that thought. Okay, I'm back. And he's munching. He's eating in that corner. So what I wanted to say is that the cost of living in the U.S. is really, really high right now. And it's only getting worse with, like, the way politics are right now. And I'm a millennial with student loan debt. And I just don't think I'll ever be able to afford a house here in the U.S. But there are pretty affordable houses. And I'm not just talking about, like, the ones that you buy for $1 and they're a shack and then you have to, like, pay a whole bunch of money to fix it or they just get condemned or whatever. I'm not talking about those. But, like, just generally speaking, housing prices are cheaper in Japan. And there's a better social safety net in terms of insurance. And there's just better infrastructure. I love the trains. I love, like, how the food is healthier. And I don't feel like I have to worry as much about food and things like that. I just love to travel. So I kind of feel like, even if I wanted to have children or whatever, it's probably, the education system's really good. There are complaints. I was talking to my friend about this, and she was like, yeah, but this, and that. And I'm like, this is hypothetical children in a hypothetical future. I mean, at least, like, having babies in the hospital and all of those things, like, healthcare is more affordable. The education is really good. I mean, if the high school exam is a huge amount of pressure in my hypothetical child's future, we can go from there when we get there. And then even if you take that out of the equation, though, things that I care about in my mid-30s in terms of stability are different than in 2010. So gone are the days of like, but what if man, but it more of like, okay, yeah, having those trains and having healthy food and having, a lot of chances to walk around and explore and to travel and have a house. Like, these all sound like really good things, and make me feel a little bit less despair about being a millennial in 2025. And I really loved those things, and I feel like I could. Okay, there are plenty of places around the world that I have lived, that I have enjoyed, and I've like particularly really liked Amsterdam, um, in Europe, and anyway, I just think that I've always said you can make home anywhere, and I believe that. Like, and I'll say like with the right people around you. But Japan just felt like I could be there and be alone and be happy. To be honest, I just feel like I could do that, and I don't think I could do that in 2010. I think I was like, the isolation really got to me in a way that it didn't do now. Like, I think people were super friendly. I don't know. In 2010, I felt like people were more scared, and I can't tell if that's a location difference thing. I can't tell if it's like because I was in the Kansai region, or if it's a 2010 thing, like temporally, like that maybe people used to be more scared about foreigners and speaking English. I've talked to someone who said that it's a little bit of both, that Yokohama just has this really like, and the same with Kamakura because it's near Yokosuka, because the base is around there, that they're just so used to foreigners and it doesn't like really scare them. But also I think it might be a time thing. I think people have just gotten better. I mean, I don't know. I know that we can talk about politics in another video. There's a lot of anti-foreigner stuff going on right now. I think it has a lot to do with tourism. I think it has a lot to do with Kyoto. I think it's like kind of complicated, to be fair. But I was just living there while all these things were going on and all these debates were going on and all these politics were going on. And the everyday average person that I talked to in Yokohama and Kamakura were very sweet and very kind and very nice people. And I really love my homestay family, and I have a really good connection with them. And they had like 4 really adorable kids, and I spent a lot of time with them, and I got to meet the soccer moms and like people in the neighborhood, and they were all very nice and very friendly. And I would go to a store, like I have a video here that feels so outdated now because I said that people in Japan are very polite, but they're not very like warm. And maybe in Tokyo, that's probably true. Like a lot of people say that you go to Tokyo and it's just very business formal, but I was in Kamakura and there was like the lady at the register actually did stop and say like, "Oh, is that your cat in your screen? Like, that's so cute." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I had a whole conversation with her. And I think my whole argument in that other video was like, "Oh, you can't do that at a store. Like, it's very business." And sometimes it is, but I didn't feel like it was like that all the time. Sometimes I get really crappy service here, actually, in depending on where you are in the U.S. Like, you can have that warmth, but you can also have people be really rude. And I don't know where I'm going with it, other than to say that I do think that I think that Japan is a place where there are kind of a lot of rules and you have to follow them, and certain ways in which you need to be polite. And I think like, it's not like big things. It's making sure that you go on the escalator correctly, and, ways of like your mannerisms, and respecting being on public transport and not taking up too much space and not being too loud and not getting on the phone, and standing in line before getting on a train, all those little things. But I feel like when you have those all down, you get into the rhythm of it, and when you're in that rhythm, everyone flows together and everyone's very kind and chill. I still think like the biggest thing for me in 2010, despite all of this, was that I couldn't imagine myself being in a Japanese work environment. And I still think that the work-life balance is really bad in Japan in terms of, I've had people that came up to me in the past year that were like, "Oh, I have this really great job in Yokohama. It's a government job, so we're not forced to do overtime." I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it's a good job because you don't have to work for free? Like, those kind of things. I mean, my friend's working a job and she loves it. I think everybody's a bit different. I just think for me personally, I wouldn't thrive in that environment. So I think that going back next time, when I go back in 2 years, I'm going to be doing research. I'm going to be working for a university, and I'm excited for that because I think that will be an environment in which I will be comfortable in. And I think further than that, when I finish my PhD, I could see myself potentially in Japan. And it's all about where I get a job. So I don't know if I'll be in Japan or not long term. But I can see myself doing it now versus, 15 years ago when I was 20 years old and I was like struggling. But as it turns out, I wasn't just struggling in Japan. I was just kind of struggling everywhere. And Japan was like hard mode of going to another country when you're young and anxious and introverted and neurodivergent and don't know what to do, right? Like, it's a much easier experience when you speak the language and are adaptable. And I wasn't as much then as I am now because I have more experience and I've lived in more places and I lived in Europe and I blah, blah, blah. All these different things. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope I didn't yap too much, and I'm going to just try to upload it without editing it too much. And I hope you made it through all 26 minutes. And I'm sorry I couldn't take out all the ums because I know I do that. But I'm going to work on just like trying to take that out of my speech naturally and see if that works. All right. Until next time, bye-bye.